A truck weighing 2500 kilogram and moving with a velocity of 21 meter per second collides with stationary car weighing 1000 kilogram. The truck and the car move together after the impact. Calculate their velocity. So because we know the truck is heavy, 2500 kilograms, and moving with a velocity 21 meter per second, and it collides with a stationary car, it means the initial velocity of the car was 0. So if you remember, I told you before when we were solving a numerical question in which a boy places a firecracker inside a can and then he plugs the opening of the can with a wooden block, and then firecracker is burning inside, and then suddenly it explodes. So when it explodes, the can moves to the left and the block which was plugged onto the opening of the can moves to the other direction. They gave us the velocity of the block, wooden block, and then we needed to find the velocity of the can. And I told you that whenever you have a problem in which a system is composed of two or more components and they are combined, and then something happens and they are separated from each other, in such problems always use the law of conservation of momentum. And of course you are given the relevant masses as well. So if you are given only the relevant masses and then the velocities are involved, and situation is like that they are part of one system, and then something happens and then they break apart, they are separated, and then you need to find one missing quantity. And then I told you that always use the law of conservation of momentum and in such situations. So the situation is similar in these questions, but it's opposite. For example, the truck and then the car, sorry for the bad image. So the car was still, so the velocity of the car was 0, and then it comes. So the event is the accident because the truck hits the car with certain velocity. So that is the event. Before that event, mean before the accident, they were free, they were separate, and then after the accident they become part of one system. So the situation is similar to the first one, but it's opposite. In the first one, like I told you, when a boy places a firecracker into the can and then he plugs the opening of the can with a wooden block, they were separated before the no, they were combined into one system before the event, and then they become separated after the accident. Here they were free before the event, and after the accident they become one system. So situation is same. Always use law of conservation of momentum in such situations. So we will use the law of conservation of momentum because they become one system after the accident, because they gave us this condition: the truck and the car move together after the impact. So it means they become one system. And in such situations, of course, we always use the law of conservation of momentum. So let me clean it up and then we can do the okay. So the law of conservation of momentum says that the total momentum of a system is equal to the total momentum of the system after the event, and whatever is the event, in this case it is the accident of the truck with the stationary car. So the law of conservation of momentum says that initial momentum or momentum before the event, total momentum, and then v1 m1 v1 plus m2 v2 if there are only two masses are involved or a system is composed of only two components, then we will add the individual momenta. So because we have only two components, a truck and a car, So we will add only two momenta, m1 v1 plus m2 v2, and let's assume that m1 is the mass of the truck, and v1 is its corresponding velocity, m2 mass of the car, and v2 is its velocity before the accident. This is the total momentum of the system, and it is equal m1 v1 prime plus m2 v2 prime. This is how we usually write the law of conservation of momentum. v1 prime is the velocity of the truck after the accident, and v2 prime is the velocity of the car after the accident or event. But now here is the condition that their velocity, because they become part of one system, so their velocities become equal. Of course, when they are together, velocity of the one should be equal to the velocity of the other. This is what we assume in our question, where the boy places the firecracker inside the can and then he closes the opening with the wooden block. So we assume that velocity of the can and the block is equal to is same. So whatever is the velocity, so here the velocity v1 prime is equal to v2 prime. So I can write it like that. I can say that m1 v1 plus m2 v2 equals, so just give v1 prime and v2 prime a single name, so let's call them velocity v. That is simple to say. So m1 v plus m2 v and m1 v1 plus m2 v2 equals, so as usual what we always do in algebra, we want to combine the similar variables. So it will become v because v is common, and remember this v is the combined velocity of the truck and the car after the accident. So let me reverse the sides and write it as v equals m1 v1 plus m2 v2 divided by m1 plus m2. So this is the expression to calculate the combined velocity of the truck and the car. We already know mass m1 and we know the initial velocity v1 of the mass m1, which is 21 meter per second, and this is mass of the car, and they said that with stationary car, so if car is stationary, this v2 should be equal to 0. Even it will become simpler. So let's make it simpler. Because car is at rest, I can write v equals m1 v1 over m1 plus m2, because this term will become equal to 0 because v2 velocity of the car is 0. They said it is a stationary car. Okay, so now just plug in the values and get your value. So the mass m1, mean mass of the truck, is 2500 kilograms. I will write this value here, 2500 kilograms multiplied by velocity v1 of this mass m1, which is truck. In our case it is 21 meter per second, divided by the mass m1, which I already know, it's 2500 kilogram, plus m2, the mass of the car. So let me check out the car weighing 1000 kilograms, so it's 1000 kilograms, and my calculator tells me that this velocity is 15 meter per second. So they both will move with the velocity 15 meter per second after the accident. And I want to remind you that whenever you want to solve this question in the exam, always write the data first. For example, you need to write the data first with, you will say that let's assume mass of the truck equals m1, it is equal to 2500 kilograms. Similarly, mass of the car equal m2, and I always write this data first and then you can start solving the question. I don't want to do it in my videos because then my videos will become too long, and a lot of students are already complaining that my videos are too long. I am sorry that my videos are long, but I just want to convey as much information as possible.